Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Safety Committee meeting for November. At the moment, we are awaiting a quorum, but in the interim, let's have our safety message played if we can.
Your safety is of foremost importance to the MTA. Therefore, we ask that you listen to the following instructions. In the event of an emergency, notify emergency personnel in the room and 911 should be called. If an alarm sounds, wait for a public address announcement and follow instructions. If told to go to another floor or to evacuate the building, leave all unessential items behind and use stairwell A just across the main hallway or stairwell D down the hallway past the elevators. An automated external defibrillator, AED, for use by trained personnel is in the main hallway just past the elevators. Thank you and have a safe day.
Thank you. And Pat, do we have public speakers today?
We do. Chris, would you go ahead, please?
Yeah, good morning, all. We have 7 members of the public registered to speak today. 3 will be here in person, 4 will be remote. As a reminder, we ask that all public speakers adhere to the MTA's rules of conduct and decorum. I would also like to remind our public speakers that in the interest of time and fairness to all speakers, we limit everyone to 2 minutes. Please be aware that there will be a warning beep to remind you that you have 30 seconds to conclude your remarks. The first speaker will be Lisa Daglian, followed by Christopher Greif.
Good morning. I'm Lisa Daglian, Executive Director of the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA, or PCAC, on a very slow Fortran today. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The Safety Committee is too important to be relegated to an 8:30 a.m. slot every few months. Safety is important for riders and for workers. The committee book has metrics that show how the agency is doing and where it needs to improve on both accounts. Safety and security continue to be top of mind for riders across the system and figure dominantly in responses to customer surveys. 20% of subway riders said personal safety and security need to improve to increase their satisfaction, while more than 15% said they would ride more often if their personal security concerns were addressed. News stories are hyper-focused on safety across the transit system, looking for all the bad news that's fit to print. But there is good news and an opportunity to better shape the conversation. This committee should be the focal point of all the joint efforts going into making riders safe, whether they're coming from Wyandanch or going to White Plains or live near West 4th. More regular meetings of this committee would allow you to showcase the advances being made and technology and initiatives being introduced to increase rider and worker safety and security. It would also allow for more questions such as, what is the status of track intrusion detection program? How does it differ from laser intrusion upgrades in subway tunnels? Installation of flood cameras to monitor potential flood areas within LIRR yards is listed as pending. But what is the status of similar projects for New York City Transit and Metro North? Increasing police across the system is one response to rider concerns and has been successful in increasing feelings of security in the system. But there are other ways to keep riders and workers safe, and we think you're doing a better job than you get credit for. Early birds may get the worm, but they rarely get to 8:30 committee meetings. So we again urge you to hold more regular meetings of the Safety Committee and hold them later in the day. It's too important an issue to let people sleep through. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker.
Our next speaker is Christopher Greif.
And thank you, Andrew, and good morning, everyone. I'm Christopher D. Greif. As an advocate, and I agree with Lisa Daglian, it is sometimes too early because, as you know, trains do delay and try to get here, especially we have kids who go to school, want to make sure they're there on time. But at the same time, I want to thank what we're seeing for the last month, NYPD, MTA police, and the security of the safety of our subways, Long Island Railroad, Metro North. It is working, and is working with the community and working with the enforcement. We have seen them on the platform and yes, on the train as well. And I'm very glad to see this, especially on the Sunday when the holiday train was running. It was glad to see them there to have the little kids have a feeling safe to be on a nice holiday train, celebrate the holidays with their families, their friends, brothers, sisters, cousins. But we still need to continuing to make sure that all our trains and buses, including Accessoride, Long Island Railroad, Metro North, are staying 1,000% safe. And we definitely need that even on all during the holiday weekends and definitely at nights. When everyone is sleeping, we need to make sure security or even undercover officers or regular officers or law enforcement are at the stations, are making sure that no one is starting or no one is interrupting the service at night, especially when it's track work or you guys are cleaning the platforms or the elevators at night. So we still need to continue working on the safety of all transportation from one end to the other, from Metro North to Long Island Railroad to buses and subways, and yes, Accessoride as well. Thank you so much and happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mary Bowden, followed by Ron Mitchell, who will be remote.
My name is Murray Bowden. The only reason I can get away with this is because I have no memory, and if I've told the truth, because the truth is always there. Everything I say is on the record. What do you do when you have 100,000 traffic engineers, 200,000 traffic engineers, all doing it wrong for the last 30 years? It's embarrassing. No traffic engineer is going to say, my profession has screwed up for the last 30 years, and we're killing people because of it. This is a world of, hi Neil. This is a world of telephones. Everybody's texting, not paying attention. When they look up, they need to see the yellow line on the left and the white line on the right. Traffic light turns green, nobody moves because they're texting. And when they look up, you want to give them the correct information. It's the information age. Look, I'm going to be 90 in June. Don't ask me how I am because... Thanks, Neil. My mind is going. I can't remember. I have to ask virtually everybody I meet why I know you. If you guys don't fix it, my grandchildren, your grandchildren's generation, are going to suffer for it. This is global warming. You don't screw around anymore. This is it. Every little piece counts. Every accident that's avoided saves the police coming and fire engines coming and everybody else. I can't do it. If you can't make them follow the law for safety reasons, this is the safety committee. The more people you save lives, the better off you are. Global warming means we ain't going to do it the way we did it before. Times changed. Thank everybody who taught me, because I didn't do this by myself. Somebody taught me all of this stuff, took the time to teach me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is remote. Yes?
Is remote Ron Mitchell, followed by Charlton D'Souza.
Mr. Mitchell, are you there?
Let's move on to Charlton D'Souza, and maybe Mr. Mitchell will join us later.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Charlton D'Souza. I'm the president of Passengers United. And what the MTA board and members are missing, and the MTA chairman's missing the point on, is that subway security and the feelings of safety in the subway. I've been assaulted personally 3 times on the subway. 3 times. I had alcohol thrown in my eyes on a bus. On the subway, EDP had hit me and beat me up. You guys don't know what's going on down there. So at last month's meeting, I was very upset about this. And, I just feel like we're missing the point on the mental health crisis in the subways. Where are the mental health workers to help them? And everyone keeps criticizing the NYPD and the MTA police department. But what people don't realize is on certain days, the number of officers available to fill shifts, especially on Sundays and Saturdays, for some weird reason, there's not enough cops. And what you're seeing is on the weekends, you see the crime wave happening. Same thing overnights. You know, there's some districts where they only have 12 officers in the NYPD to cover staffing overnight. So they've got to get it together. And, you know, the public's being misled about subway safety. And as far as Grand Central goes, Grand Central Madison, I'm very, very concerned about that. The fire safety devices have not been properly installed. And also, I'm going to be talking later about the PTC installation. I have issues with that. But I think this board needs to, you know, keep the private security guards there or hire 2,000 property protection agents in the subway. You need security, and the police can't do it all. But, you know, we're getting there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jason Anthony, followed by Andy Pollock.
Good morning, MTA boy. James Anthony here from Amazon JFK. My apologies. I couldn't join you guys in person. It's my feeling that I'm working here today, but I'll join you guys in December. One thing that I want to address is that the safety committee, once again, is too early. It should be during the day, not at 8:30 in the morning. Once again, police presence is needed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Because again, I commute between 3 and 4 in the morning, and I don't see police presence at all during those times of day at my home subway station, Atlantic Avenue, Barclays Center. But I have seen police presence throughout the day. And we could give credit to Chief Jason Wilcox and to the Police Chief Pichan Sewell and Mayor Adams. But we need more. So that's all I have to say. I'll see you guys in Bridges and Tunnels.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Andy Pollock and remote, and Ron Mitchell if he is available.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Andy Pollock, and I am a member of Passengers United. So, like the other previous speakers have been saying, why are we having this meeting at 8:30 in the morning when I'm first barely waking up and having my first cup of coffee? You know, it really doesn't make any sense, and I agree with what the other speakers have been saying. This meeting does need to be later in the day so we can address all of our safety concerns. And specifically, I want to talk about subway safety. In the past couple of months, I've been avoiding the subway at all costs due to the rising crime. We just recently got the October report, and it is very alarming seeing all these robberies in the past couple of months, especially the October report, which revealed damning numbers, which is very alarming to me. And that is why personally, I have been avoiding the system as much as I can. In fact, last week when I was in Manhattan, I had to go to Lower Manhattan. I took the bus. I normally take the subway, but I was so scared to jump on the subway that I had to take the bus to and from Lower Manhattan last week. So it's a really scary time right now, and I personally do not feel safe riding the subway. So I know everybody says, oh, we need more cops, and I'm very grateful that we've had a lot of cops at Jackson Heights Roosevelt in the past year, but it's not going to completely solve the problem. We need mental health workers to address the emotionally disturbed people. And I also want to mention that recently when I took the Q12 bus a couple of weeks ago, I was almost assaulted by an emotionally disturbed person. So safety, again, needs to be top priority within this organization, especially for longtime passengers like me who use the system on a weekly basis. So that's pretty much it. And I'm going to speak at Long Island Railroad Committee in an hour. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our speakers for today. Mr. Mitchell is not available.
All right, thank you for that. I believe we now have a quorum. I will just make the following correction. on page 3 of the minutes, on commissioners attending the meeting, it says Honorable Robert Mack instead of Honorable David Mack. So if we can make that correction, I would then recommend we approve the minutes as submitted.
If I may, my name was left off from.
And you were there?
Yes, and I was there.
Okay. That's another correction. So let's put Blanca's name on the minutes, and with those 2 corrections, may we have an great. Terrific, thank you. Mr. Warren, would you like to give the work plan?
Yeah, thank you. There are, by the way, there are no changes to the work plan. Good morning, board members, staff, and our guests, and thanks for being here, and this is an important topic. In the safety book, you'll find information on the status of NTSB recommendations, our agency-wide drug and alcohol program, and our efforts for installing CCTV cameras. Further, you'll also see our agency safety and security statistics beginning on page 8. However, given the significance of the subway security and extraordinary efforts that have been put into play to improve security conditions, we will use our time this meeting to go over and review those efforts. In early fall, New York City as a whole and our subway system saw a rash of assaults and similar events which understandably increased levels of anxiety of our customers about using the subways. As a consequence, October 22nd, Governor Hochul, Mayor Adams, and our Chair, Jan Olivo, announced further activities that will be taken by the police and health community and the health community and MTA to tackle these issues. The program focused around 3 categories coined as cops, cameras, and care to rapidly address the challenges of crime, mental illness, and homelessness, which are some of the topics that our speakers talked about today. Let's talk about police for a second. MTA asked the city and the NYPD for a significant increase in the number of police seen on platforms and on trains to rapidly interdict crimes in progress and or quickly apprehend a subject. To achieve this, the NYPD directed overtime for an additional 1,200 official officer shifts every day at over 300 stations. It's remarkable, and this equates to about 10,000 overtime hours per day. Further, we asked train conductors to announce the presence of police in the stations when police were approached by the police. This magnifies the awareness of the presence of police to riders who are unable to see them. Lastly, the MTA PD began policing the 4 major transit hubs where the subways and the railroads meet. This in turn freed the NYPD to provide greater presence at other subway stations. These efforts have borne fruits, as have been witnessed recently over the last 3 weeks of November, where assaults have dropped over the annual rate by almost 20% and almost 60% since the peak in October. When taken in context with the 100,000 summonses issued last year, over 320 per day, for fare evasion and other violations, a 54% increase over last year, and an arrest rate up 93% from last year. Many important tools are now in place and are beginning to be used. So while it's still early in this program, we are optimistic that we have turned the corner going into the holiday season. A little bit more about the MTA PD efforts. Over the last several weeks, the MTA PT took over security operations at the subway portions of the transportation hubs at Penn Station, Grand Central Terminal, Atlantic Terminal, and the Sutphin Boulevard subway platforms at Jamaica Terminal. To support this effort, the governor made the New York State Police available to support MTA PD to enable the continuance of the MTA PD's other missions, particularly with regard to the commuter railroads. During these first weeks, the PD issued over 480 summonses, the MTA PD, that is, over 480 summonses, made 8 arrests, ejected 669 individuals in violation of the rules, and achieved compliance from over 2,500 individuals such that they paid their fares. Most significantly, reported crime and complaints are very low, And I just want to point out these pictures right here on the screen. I love them because you can see how customers out there really interact with the police when they see them at the turnstiles. These hubs are very confusing to anyone going to who haven't frequented them a lot, and their support to the customers and the public out there is really outstanding, and it's great to see in these photos. Mentioned a little bit about gate guards. One of the speakers mentioned it. And for those who attend the Transit Committee meeting, you'll hear more about the pilot of the gate guard program, but let me take a moment to give you an overview. Our data shows that 50 to 60% of our fare evasion occurs through the emergency gates and is often performed by those who would otherwise pay their fare. So to keep people honest, we put unarmed gate guards at select stations, about 12 currently, to keep the gates closed unless being used appropriately by those who have strollers, luggage, or have a disability in a wheelchair as such. Additionally, they serve as additional eyes and ears that will alert police or MTA authorities to issues that are in the system. The program has demonstrated success at reducing fare evasion, and the guards' presence further provides a greater sense of security in the subways, and I personally was just seeing them today.
Before you get too far off this, I have often reported gates not closing, and obviously some individuals have made it impossible that they close by putting various objects or tape. When these gates are not closed, is an electronic message of any sort sent to anywhere?
I'm not aware, Bobby.
No, there's no message that's actually sent.
So you don't know if they're open or closed?
Correct.
We do. It is a function of the staff at the stations to go by and check the gates daily.
Right.
To see if
that's a physical check that actually occurs.
They're supposed to check daily because I've reported repeatedly the same door not closing, so.
If you could give me that location.
Absolutely.
All right, I'll follow up on that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And it is a problem. It's one that we try to keep up. And it's gate guards, that's the kind of stuff that they further stop from happening because they're, yeah, that's right. Okay. Commuter rail. Maintaining and further improving our safety and security missions continue to be non-negotiable for us on the commuter rails. One of our flagship efforts on the commuter railroads was the reinstatement and growth of the train patrol program with a goal of visiting the most used rail segments multiple times a week and all trains at least weekly. Patrols have almost doubled over the last 3 months, and we expect to see a more constant presence once we stand up a permanent train patrol detachment in the new year. Currently, employee assaults are at their lowest point since the summer, and customer complaints are also low. Given the vast territory the two railroads cover, it is important to have effective relationships with local police and other authorities to expedite security actions. Our police leadership, led by Chief John Mueller, have been visiting the municipality leadership in the Long Island Railroad and Metro North areas of operation, and they've built some strong coordination, and they talk about many important points of I guess insecurity as they work through the challenges in their regions. And the initial interactions have been quite positive, and they've helped address issues like bike theft, and the support and how we support the movement of aided cases off railroad property and into their communities. It's been very effective in soothing processes, making them more streamlined, and making sure everybody knows their role. And to provide assistance with EDP and AD cases, our officers are receiving enhanced training on how to work with people exhibiting emotional and mental health conditions to achieve a more satisfactory and healthier outcome for the individual. There is no doubt that the security presence and support of MTA PD across the railroad area of operation has contributed to the improved ridership. Transit bans. Another safety initiative that you may recently read about is that we are pursuing bans on customers within our system, which is a recent New York State law. And what it does is that it allows for a judge to ban a sex offender for a crime that occurs in the subway system, or ban someone who assaults an MTA employee within our transportation system. To this end, the primary efforts have been primary efforts have been to track these offenses through the criminal justice system and to contact judges and district attorneys to make them aware of this new law and ask that they consider its use when adjudicating these cases. Of note, the first use of this law on MTA property, and I think actually maybe the first use across the entire state, occurred this month in Suffolk County. So we're thankful to that DA, and we expect to see more in the coming months. We're currently tracking about 52 cases, and they grow every day. And some of them end up they actually go to jail, so they don't. That's the ultimate ban, right? They're in jail. Others are dismissed, but we really are working hard at this, and we've seen a lot of agreement by the DAs across all the boroughs and the counties, and it looks like this is going to be a great effort.
In the case of Suffolk County, with this individual banned from riding the railroad for 2 years, I believe it is, what's the penalty if he is seen on the system?
So it's a great question, and it varies by locality. It varies by what they said the person couldn't, what was written into the deal, the plea agreement, or the verdict by the judge about what they can and can't do. It is new right now, so we are really working through what we can do to what we can and can't do. But for sure, right now, we would arrest for trespass at a minimum, and then there's other things we may or may not be able to do. But it's new, and we're excited to work through the issues. A little bit about cameras. As you know and may be aware, the MTA has an extensive array of cameras across the system. We have cameras in stations, commuter rail, road cars, on buses, and in our facilities. And the MTA has been very active over the last couple of years with the installation of cameras in our subway stations. As a next step, we are installing them on subway cars. Thanks to a grant made possible by Governor Hochul, we can purchase thousands of cameras to support this project. Installation is underway, and we expect to finish with over 6,000. We have a 6,000 car fleet within the next 18 to 24 months. Further, as part of the build-out, we are also improving coverage in many of our stations in the coming months. So while there are cameras in every station, we're looking for those nooks and crannies that may be not covered right now, and we're making sure that we have coverage there. So
The cameras that are in every fare control area do not extend to the platforms, or a partial glimpse of the platforms is available?
That's correct. Okay, what we do have is we have cameras that are passenger identification cameras that are at the turnstiles. Then we also have cameras that are on the platforms. We also have some locations where in the mezzanine area you may have a camera as well as on MVM machines. So there's a real diversity of cameras that we have out there throughout the 472 stations.
So this program that the governor announced will place cameras at all stations in all locations?
Right.
The program from the governor is largely to put cameras in subway cars.
Right.
But there is also some set aside to put more cameras in the stations where we need them. And we further have even more capital program projects for cameras, which is part of what's in the book today. Right.
Part of what we're doing also is to put cameras on platforms. We're finding them to be very advantageous, especially during the commission of crimes.
Yes.
Right. We've been able to capture numerous perpetrators because of that. So we're looking to expand that out so that all platforms would have cameras eventually.
And I believe the R211s are arriving with cameras already installed?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Of significance, our video footage has been instrumental in supporting police investigations, which, together with our officer presence, has driven the NYPD arrest rate up 46% this year. So cameras are incredibly valuable, and we get reminded of that every day. And criminals, we want to remind those who dare to commit crimes in our system that they are going to get caught on camera. CARE.
Commissioner Zuckerman.
I'll ask again. Okay. CARE. A big part of the program to improve security in the subways is providing increased and focused support to those suffering from mental health issues, substance abuse, and homelessness. Significant effort is being put into shoring up the different programs to support this needed care. Specifically, the city and the governor are providing 50 dedicated psychiatric beds for individuals who use the transit system as a shelter. Given the scarcity of these kinds of beds across the state, these spaces are much needed resource, and we're quite grateful to have them available. The involuntary hospitalization process, also known as the 958 process, for those who are seen as a harm to themselves or others is not well understood and consequently infrequently used. To address the shortcoming, the city and state health offices, OMH, DOHMH, and DHS, as well as the police and fire departments, have reviewed the law, updated the guidance, and are now in the process of training administrative and field staff on how, when, and why to use the authority. As importantly, the development of this guidance and training is being conducted jointly, which is really important to get all those teams to work together, is a big piece of this, thus providing a more holistic and coordinated process. We have much optimism that these efforts will be game changers. There's further recognition that there is a subset of individuals whose presence and condition within the transit system has an outsized impact on the perception of security. Therefore, DHS, along with the MTA and other city and state partners, have developed a process to more effectively monitor and case manage those who have the greatest challenges, and we're pretty optimistic about that program too, because there are a finite number of those people with outsized impact. End of line. The goals of the end of line mission are to get social services to those who ride the trains in the middle of the night and reduce the observations of egregious and unhealthy rules violations which our customers endure. This program includes teams of either MTA or NYPD officers, outreach workers, clinicians, and MTA station staff working to connect those in need with services and clear trains and stations of those who have completed their trip. Over the months, this program has been refined through collective training and the addition of permanent outreach staff, which is a big thank you to the city for bringing on more outreach workers through DHS and then applying them to this process so that they're consistent every night to better case manage those routinely seen attempting to use the system as a shelter. Over the last year, hundreds of individuals have received services and many have been placed permanently. Efforts have been reinforced to support the expected winter season surge. That's what we have, Chair, for today. I'll glad to take questions.
Thank you. Neil? And
So-
then Jerry.
So I have I guess it's a mix of a policing question and a safety question. I know we don't have anyone from our police department here that I can tell. Are they here somewhere? No. Okay. Norman is gesturing. So this may be a bit of a philosophical question, but as a novice, I'm just interested. You know, we wax and wane in the belief that, to use the phrase, broken windows is an effective deterrent, if you will. That if you take care of the small stuff, the big stuff doesn't happen. We talk a lot about jumping the turnstiles as being obviously an economic and a financial problem and certainly a burden on certain groups, but at the same time, it is indicative of a certain behavior that I would classify in that bucket as broken windows. If people can jump the turnstile, they can do other things. Do you safety professionals have a viewpoint as to whether this theory, this philosophy is correct, that actually if you stop the small stuff, the big stuff doesn't happen?
Good, Bobby.
Well, I'll just give you my opinion on it, having done 24 years in the police department before coming here to
I'll take that
transit.
as a professional
Okay,
viewpoint,
okay,
not an opinion, sir.
Very, very good. So, you know, one thing that I have seen throughout my lifetime is that, you know, once you stop those small offenses, it doesn't, you know, go to the bigger offenses. I mean, even to the point of at turnstiles, you know, stopping people for fare evasion have yielded people with guns, people with weapons. You know, those weapons may not just be used, you know, in the self-defense of somebody, but maybe offensively against people for robberies, for assaults, things to that nature. So in many ways, if you stop that, small crimes from occurring, it does lead to the bigger crimes to be deterred.
I think also that we see it with our gate guards, and we see it with in the fact that they have in just keeping people out who see them there is effective, and if you can't get in the system, then you're not going to commit a crime in the system. Likewise, when the police, you know, do summonses and do fare evasion and they're out there, we've seen that they catch people with guns, they catch a lot of other nefarious activities out there. So yes, looking at some of the small things is really important.
As a comment that follows up on that, I want to say that a very minor thing you guys have done in terms of effort, but it feels like it has a perception impact, a good impact, has been this announcement you've been doing on the subways. Actually, it's very hard to tell what they're exactly saying, given our communication systems at times and how busy I'm sure those conductors are doing so many tasks, but that you're saying some of the effect of go on the platform and see the, I don't know if you call them cops or policemen or whatever you're saying, but I find that even that citation, to hear the word police, because that's the one word you hear among all the other nouns and verbs being used, I think just talking about it makes people, I don't know, I haven't done a survey. I hope when we do our next one, maybe we test to see whether that's having impact. But I thank you because I remember when I first joined this board many years ago now, I would talk about a book that a guy at our firm wrote, and it was called The Forgotten Half of Change. The Forgotten Half of Change. And his whole theory was changing a thing in reality is easy, changing the perception is really hard, takes X times longer, it's much harder, this whole notion of it's not safe to go in the subway. Well, your data is showing actually you're bending the curve, but how long is it going to take for perception? I think that kind of announcement helps, so thank you for that.
And to buttress what the last two speakers have said, when they catch a perpetrator for having committed a crime, they catch him with his face and they show him not paying the fare, jumping over or going through the gate. So obviously it has effects. Jerry.
Okay, actually, Neil beat me to the punch on one of the items. There should be a representative here from the MTA PD. I mean, we've mentioned policing how many times? If the chief can't get here, I understand he's busy, but he can have a representative here to get our feedback. I think
He
it's very
sent me a
important.
note. Unfortunately, he was en route and got hung up, so I expect to see him anytime. But anyway, your
Okay,
point's
but
well taken. Thank
I
you.
think that should be,
Yeah.
The other thing is, from a perception of the riders, because I'm riders representative, you talk about police presence, but cop clusters don't work, okay? Riders notice that we want the cops spread out. I came off the train in Penn Station this morning in the Central Corridor, where it was kind of dark because of the construction. There were 4 homeless individuals there spread out. Fortunately, nobody was panhandling, but there was no police presence in that corridor.
Mm-hmm.
You come, you make the turn into the nice, bright public area, 6 police officers all standing together in front of the ticket office. This has been an ongoing thing for years. I mean, it used to be Kmart. The safest place in Penn Station is right in front of Kmart because that's where the police officers are. They even used to park their golf carts there. The riders would like to see these police spread out. Maybe have one officer in that particular corridor, just in case one of those 4 homeless people decided to, maybe had a mental issue. So I just speaking for the commuters, spread the cops out. 6 guys in one cluster does not give us a warm fuzzy.
So that is their instructions to spread out, and we'll talk to them again.
No, and I'd really appreciate it because it's an ongoing thing. And one other thing, just to piggyback on what was said earlier, I think we should have safety committee meetings every month. It's very important. Yes, it would be nice if it was later in the day, but the critical thing is we have it every month, and I'd just like to go on the record for that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Norman.
Yeah, let's fix all our broken windows. I'm all for that. But if you stop people randomly on the street, you'll find guns. So I don't see. I mean, that by itself. The jumping the turnstile. You found a guy jumped a turnstile and had a gun. Great. A lot of people paid to have their fare and had guns as well. I don't think that that you do find. I mean, it's a very delicate data question whether you're really getting at the problem here or not. And my real question here is, and this is only a diversion because of broken windows, we talk about it forever, yeah. But it seems to me that the cameras are going everywhere in the system. How many people have we hired to look at the cameras, to watch the cameras, to analyze who's jumping where, when? Are we gonna be able to automate all this? I mean, do we have a whole cadre of analysts that are going in to get all this new data with this explosion of cameras?
So we do have a lot of folks looking at the different cameras out there. Now, not all of them stream back to an easy database to look at, but the ones that we do have access to, we are looking at that data. As you recall, we have artificial intelligence systems at about a half dozen stations right now. We're putting into 22 more stations, which further lets us know about fare evasion and some of the other crimes that we're trying to, or incidents like looking for left bags and stuff like that in the system. So we are pursuing that right now, to your point.
Well, it seems to me, I mean, there's at least two functions of the cameras here. One is clearly to investigate crimes. This is, I mean, the crimes happened. Okay, let's look and see when the guy got in the system, where he came from, all this, and it's a very important function, maybe the dominant function here. And then the other function is to learn about fare evasion and learn more about your riders. So. And how are the resources divided between the two? Are these here basically for crime investigation, or they're certainly not here to stop immediate crimes, I assume, unless maybe in certain rare circumstances it will apply. But or maybe you think it's going to be able to be a real-time tool that you can send people down there. But I mean, you got basically two functions here. One is MTA information, and the other is researching crime.
So we do use the data as a tool to predict where crime or other activities are more likely to happen, whether it's homelessness, whether it's fare evasion, whether it's crime. We take a look at those areas, and that's where we then we provide the information to YPD as well as our own security forces, such that we can try to get a more efficient and effective use of our resources at those locations where we're seeing these increases or heightened areas. Bobby, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to bring up just one other point, especially with cameras. You have a set amount of cameras coming into a center. You have dashboard analysts watching cameras. And a lot of times they're flipping through different areas. There has been on occasion that we've seen crimes occur and have been able to notify the police. We've also had incidents where a person actually fell onto the roadbed and the analyst witnessed it, called up, was able to stop the train, get that person off the tracks. So there's a lot to go with that, with not just looking at the forensic value of cameras, but also how they can be used. Even if you look at like crowding, like during storms or whatever, it's good to know what stations you have that are getting overcrowded so that we can dispatch proper personnel to those scenes.
Well, I'm often very obtuse with my questions, so just humor me here. But how many more people have we got on that task? The people rather than the cameras. We're expanding cameras enormously, but and we've had trouble hiring other. Getting people in the right positions, skilled positions.
That I agree with you on. It is challenging to get people in, especially as we expand cameras out. But as we are getting more resources out there, we're asking for more resources to watch and be able to decipher what we're seeing out there.
Blanca?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two questions. With respect to the CARE program and the end-of-line services, is there a way to get more information on a monthly basis? And maybe this is tied to having these meetings more often than just quarterly, on the number of people who are assisted. And my other question has to do with who initiates these services. Can a passerby call? Is it MTA personnel that has to do it? If you could just comment on that, that'd be great.
Yeah, so there are, the answer is yes, both people can do it. The typical way that somebody can, a customer can do it is go to the 311 if they see somebody and put it into through that system there. Our own employees can do it through either the RCC or if it's a bus issue or whatever, they can put it through their command centers, and it goes to the police and to DHS at that point to look at that. Again, resources are sort of finite. Some of these guys, if they're on a train, they're hard to sort of follow as the train goes along and catch up with them. But there are multiple ways, and everybody is trying to look at how it has a method to contact us and the police and the outreach workers to get support. Yeah.
One of the questions that I think is on many people's minds is all of these cameras that we have and more that we're getting. What percentage of them will be monitored in real time?
Yeah, so by a human, not a very small percent, less than, I don't know, 10th percent, but But through automation, we'll be able to use artificial intelligence as we continue to grow this, which would then alert us that there's a problem, and then the human can get in the loop and start looking at the camera.
Okay, that's good news. Any other questions? What else do we have? I think we're ready to ask for a motion to adjourn. And the next meeting, by the way, will be in January. So we look forward to that. Motion to adjourn? Thank you. Any objections? Thank you all.